Hello and welcome back to another episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School. I'm your host, Charley Mann of Law Firm Alchemy and Red Kraken Creative. My guest today is someone who I met recently, was on his podcast previously, and someone who, he's in a category that I love talking about because most of the time talking about marketing, but I really do love talking money and math. Like, I'm a secret math nerd. I'm not super great at it, but I love statistics. I love the data. I'm not an Excel spreadsheet expert, but I'm sure our guest is. And he is the founder, and I have learned supreme leader as well, of Lawyer Millionaire. It's Darren Wurz. Darren, welcome to the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me on, Charlie. I'm excited to be here with you today.
It's going to be a good time. So, Darren, let's answer the big question. What's the one thing they don't teach you in law school?
Well, for us, the biggest thing they don't teach you in law school is how to manage your money and how to plan for retirement. And that is what we're all about.
Okay, plan for retirement. Immediately, I start thinking, like, how do different law firm owners even contemplate what retirement is?
They don't.
Right. So dig in there. Tell me about that.
Most law firm owners that we work with, they have a different concept of retirement. They don't want to retire. It's not like, at age 65, I'm going to step away and get my Rolex and start collecting my pension, right?
Yeah.
You're in a unique field where what you do isn't physically demanding. You can continue to do it for a long time. And most law firm owners enjoy the business side of running a law firm. And so they have a more non-traditional view of retirement. But this huge caveat, you still need to plan for it. You still need to plan. Let's still plan as if you're going to retire at 65, right? So that when you get there, you have options, right? You don't want to get there and be like, oh crap, I have to keep working.
Right. And 65 in and of itself being, I understand Social Security benefits but otherwise it's a little bit of an arbitrary number. When you have this conversation with firm owners, how many of them just anchor on 65 by default versus, hey, I'm thinking about being aggressive about retirement?
It really varies. I think most of them actually think longer. They're thinking like 70, 75. Yeah. But, I have to tell you, Charlie, I think part of it is momentum. I think part of it is just being in the momentum of running a business. And it's what you do. It's what you do every day. And if you didn't do it, you would drive yourself crazy with boredom. But once you actually step out, like one of our clients, he's done very, very well for himself. He's built a very sizable personal injury practice. He's ready to hand it off in like 5 years. Here's the other thing. He's built a very sizable investment portfolio. So he has the capability to walk away. And he's only in his 50s. And he hasn't really been thinking seriously about retirement, but he had a chance to take some time off, do some traveling through Asia with his kids. And he got back and he said, you know what? I'm starting to think more about this.
Yeah.
This is starting to seem pretty appealing to walk away. So when you actually take a step out, sometimes your perspective changes a little bit.
When the average attorney approaches you, like, hey, this is something I want to be more proactive with my money. I want to better understand it. What condition do you usually find a law firm owner in terms of how the money is managed or planning that is in place?
Oh boy.
Opening Pandora's box here.
Yeah, it runs the gamut, but I'll tell you the difficult side. I'll start with the worst side, right?
Okay.
Where I find a lot of law firm owners are, even if they're very, very successful in their business. What I find is that they haven't done a lot of proactive planning. They've been investing super heavy in the business, and that's fine, but they haven't gotten themselves in a really liquid position, right? I find a lot of law firm owners are kind of in this situation, and I'm basing this on a client that we worked with who came to us. He was making $600,000-$700,000 a year in personal income. His law firm is doing well over $1 million, right? Doing very well. But he only has $100,000 invested and he's in his 50s, right? And so we've got to do something. And the other thing is he has a bookkeeper. Every week he's telling his bookkeeper, oh, we need to pull 10,000 from the firm because I've got to repair the roof, or, oh, we need to put some money back in the firm because we're running a little bit low this month on payroll. That's the situation.
People who are only listening and not viewing the podcast on YouTube, I'm like, I was aggressively sort of shaking my hand and getting excited when Darren was telling that story, because I recently, Darren, sat down with a firm owner who does $1.5 million per year. He pulls between $600,000 to $800,000 out of the firm every year. Mm-hmm. Aside from equity in his house, he only has $150,000 left to his name.
Ouch.
And he's mid-ish 40s.
Yeah.
And he's had many, many years of this income. And it's spent on these sort of random 5-figure. And it's funny, you named that $10,000 number. In his case, that was the thing. I heard him talking with one of his financial pros, and it was just this like, oh, by the way, I'm spending $10,000 on this coming up. So like, let's make sure that that's considered. Yeah. And, he wants, his big goal is to be a multi-deca millionaire.
Right.
It's like, well, that's a big gap. That's a big behavioral change. I'm curious on that behavioral front, when you're helping them plan, how much is it facts? How much of it is emotions and psychology?
There's a lot of emotions and psychology that plays into it, because I find that law firm owners have big dreams, big goals.
Yeah.
They want to have a private plane. They want to have 4 houses in 4 countries, right?
Yep.
And it's like, that's great. But and a lot of times they're relying solely on cash flow, and they're only thinking about cash flow. How much can the business cash flow to me? Nothing necessarily inherently wrong with that, right? But there's risk involved in that. The world is changing. The world of law firms, I think there's a misconception that I can build my firm into this passive income machine and I won't have to do anything. I can sit on a beach in Maui and sip a cocktail and everyone will be doing everything for me. That sounds great, and maybe you might be able to do it. But it's very, very difficult, and it's very unlikely, because the world is changing, right? And we get into this status quo. We have this. We're actually talking about this right now because we're reading A Random Walk Down Wall Street, and we have this. We have this problem as human beings where we tend to extrapolate the present into the future indefinitely, right? I can create this law firm, and then I can change nothing and it will just be this way forever. Well, friend, the world is constantly changing and your business has to constantly evolve.
Yeah.
And as you grow in the rungs of leadership, what you find is you don't get less busy usually.
No, you really don't. The busy just changes.
Yeah. Yeah.
So they tend to be on the cash flow basis, pulling out when they're working with you, and you're looking at that and going, Darren, help me, please. What are some of the earliest transitions that you want to see them make, and how that money moves through their life?
Yes. Number one, we just need to get some clarity. We just need to be perfectly clear on what's yours and what's the business's. And we need to have a great wall of China between the two. Okay. There needs to be no money going back and forth. We need to get you on payroll. If you are taking a draw, we need to set that draw up so that it is automatic and it is consistent, right?
There we go.
We need to figure out, how much do you really need? What's your baseline that you need to make? We need to make sure that you're making that, right? Let's make sure you're making that. Let's set it up on an automatic, consistent basis. Yeah. I think that step one is just getting that clarity, separating the personal and business finances completely, and getting that regularity going for you.
What about some accountants, some CFOs, et cetera, push fairly aggressively on the, hey, let's run a lot of expenses through the business. Let's find ways to tie that in. Is that more of a, oftentimes dependent on who you might be working on as a financial professional, or is that something that philosophy of the law firm owner drives a lot of it?
That can be fine. And I see a lot of businesses do that. We call that total owner's benefit, right? But we need to be aware of it.
Yep.
Because if you have a lot of your expenses going through the firm and you're not seeing them, you might think, oh yeah, I can live on only $5,000 a month. Shit. Okay.
Yeah.
So I actually had this brilliant idea. I thought it was brilliant. I'll toot my own horn. We had a client who had this problem. He's like, I don't know what my nut is. I don't know what I need to make. What's my expenses? So I said, let's do this. You have a lot of expenses running through the firm. Let's have all those expenses let's set up a like profit first kind of system. And let's have all those expenses come out of one account. They can be a business account, so it's still on the business side, but we can tie that into your personal budgeting software so that you can keep track of it actually on a personal budgeting basis. So I thought that was kind of a neat idea, but at most basic level, we've got to be aware of what those things are.
Yeah. Well, so that's an interesting thing, the idea of awareness. I imagine, Darren, that a lot of law firm owners who come to you, their level of awareness is across the spectrum, but often lower overall. And I would say that this is true of most business owners, excluding those who had a previous financial background. Like, this isn't just endemic to law firm owners. It's working with business owners. You encounter this.
Yeah.
What are some of the biggest deficits in knowledge or insights that you see?
Yeah. The biggest one is how much am I spending each month?
Yeah.
Right. Personally, where's the money going? Okay. I'm making a lot of money, but where the heck is it all going?
It's amazing how it can slip through your fingers in good times.
That's probably the biggest one of all, getting some real clarity around that. We have a software we hook up to your accounts, track everything. There's a really neat water flow chart, so you can look at a whole year's worth of expenses and see, here's where all the dollars went. Yes, you spent 40 grand on Amazon this year. We need to know. We need to know where it's going. Yeah.
Or a couple of really big vacations that got really big while you were on the vacation, not just booking the tickets, but we're going. So I'm taking my family to New York City. It's one of our annual trips that we make. At least once a year, we go to New York City and we do a little Broadway blitz. We're going to go see a few shows while we're there. And turns out tickets aren't free. I don't know if anyone's actually looked into this phenomenon. Broadway tickets, they're not free, nor are they only $30. And so that's one of those things. It's like, to go to New York City for us, we can hop on the train, we can get a hotel. It's pretty cheap. But we basically 4x the expense as soon as we go see 3 Broadway shows.
Definitely.
And I think a lot of people don't see that. And even in the firm, I'm sure you've had this experience, Darren, where you talk with firm owners about, say, the salary costs of team members. And they say, well, it only adds up to $400,000 in salaries I'm paying. Well, what about burden rate? That's a missing component for all of it. So those little expenses, I assume you see those causing issues as well.
Definitely. Now, I'm not saying that we need to put you on a budget and, be all restrictive. I know people hate those words, right? But we need to know. And I think awareness creates power because we know where stuff is going. And then the second stage is we can be proactive about where money is going. And so let's set up an automatic dollar amount going into your personal emergency fund, going into your business emergency fund. Do you have one, by the way? You need one. And let's set that up on autopilot, because that's the other thing. I think stage 2 is having the liquidity. So many business firm owners are just on razor thin margins, right? And that's why there's money that has to change hands between the business and the personal accounts so often, is we're not building liquidity in the business. And then we're having to put stuff on credit cards and lines of credit, and then that's causing additional expenses. So if we have liquidity, if we can build you up a couple $100,000 in liquidity on the business side, put it in a 4% money market, hey, great. Now we're really cooking, So I think that's stage 2, is getting that liquidity piece squared away.
You mentioned putting it into the money market account. I think there are some firm owners who are annoyed at the idea of money sitting in the business. How do you help them make that leap?
That's a good question. How do you motivate people? Well, I think maybe helping them understand what your interest cost is, because you may not be seeing it. Like if you have to put money on credit cards to cover expenses until you get paid, or a line of credit, you may not actually see that as a line item expense. It's just on the credit card. But if we actually quantify it, if we add it up and you're like, holy crap, I'm spending 20 grand a year in credit card interest, right? Okay, let's figure out what we need to do. I think it can be very motivating to think, hey, if I have 100,000 in a money market, that can make $4,000 a year for me, extra revenue for the business. So that can be motivating. We don't get there right away. Usually we build it up over time. We put it in a separate account where you're not looking at it and you don't see it. And this happened with my business, one of my law firm owner clients. He had a period of time where payments from the government were slow, and revenue wasn't coming in, and so he had the line of credit. He was accessing it, and I was like, "Dude, you've got 200 grand in your business emergency fund, and that's what it's there for." But what I find is that there's a reluctance then to touch it.
Fascinating.
Like, here it is. We can use it. Yeah,
that is so interesting. Because the default for me would be, I'm going to take out of cash, not extend debt. Why do you think it is that someone would go, okay, I'm going to use the line of credit rather than tap into my reserve fund? Where's that come from?
Fear. It comes from fear.
Yeah.
The money's there, and this actually can work for you, because you'd be less prone to it's easier to dip into credit cards than it is to use emergency funds, because when you use emergency funds, you're giving away something you actually have, right? And that is psychologically more difficult for us. So I think that's probably the biggest component.
I've seen this many times. I actually had an interesting conversation with a coaching client recently who set up a fairly significant emergency fund for himself 3 years ago, or 2.5 years ago, after he had a lot of really good cases resolved for himself. What was interesting, Darren, I really want to hear your thoughts on this, is what he did was he actually had an emergency fund that really was too big. And over the last 2.5 years, he has slowly spent out of this, and he refers to it as an operating account. And he slowly spent out of this operating account to the point where now it is about 5% of where it started. And he said, I took that out. It was going to be my safety and everything. It's allowed me to take some risks. And what I suggested to him, and I really want to hear your thoughts, suggested maybe when you set up that account, you should have taken half of that out for yourself, so the account was smaller and you would have changed your behavior sooner rather than waiting this long. What do you think about that psychology or practicality of the amount? And by the way, it was well over 8 months worth of reserves, I believe.
Yeah, that's a lot.
I think it could have been closer to, say, 6 months, but as I recall, it was a pretty significant amount.
Yeah. I mean, are you taking the profit distributions that you should be taking? I mean, you want to reward yourself. I think there is some of that. I mean, definitely you want to, you deserve to take some profit distributions if you have a big influx of cash. It's not a bad idea to stick some in the emergency fund, beef it up, but it can be too big. 8 months is probably too big, depending on the practice area. Some practice areas are more volatile than others. But I think Yeah, I think I don't see this a whole lot, but you can underinvest in your business. You can be too profitable. Yeah.
Do you know how many
Probably.
people listening to this right now are like, screw you, you can't be too profitable. Don't you dare say that, Darren.
No, it's true. What I don't know what the general rule of thumb is, but I think it's like 30%. If your profit margin is over 30%, you're probably under investing in your business. And where should we invest? We just throw money away? Well, no, but we should be thinking about how are we going to insulate the business from risks for the next 10, 20 years, right? Let's
Right.
really make sure the business is in a position to withstand changes in the economy that could be coming.
Yeah. Interesting. That number, when you mentioned, say, 30% profit margin, when you're talking with a firm owner, when you talk to them about profit, is that representative of the total owner benefit? Or is that, hey, we're paying you a salary, you've got your health insurance, you got your 401k through it, and then we're looking for, say, 25 to 30% profit margin? Or is that the total owner benefit number?
That's where it gets murky, right?
I know. I'm really leading you into the murky waters, knowing full well this is a complex discussion.
I like to keep it clean. Maybe we classify, if you're taking like a regular draw to support your personal lifestyle, maybe we count that as part of your compensation. And then we're looking for profit on top of that. I think that would be probably the best way to do it. I like clarity. I find that in law firms, historically, there's a lot of murkiness. I was just having a conversation about a client, along these lines, who's thinking about bringing on a partner and how do we do this and what should their percentage be and how should they be paid, and like, let's keep things in their boxes. And because I think for so often law firms in general, like, the law firms of 20, 30 years ago, were not run like any other businesses. They were these loose business models that really, and I find this is the case even in big law. Nobody knows what does equity partnership mean, and nobody knows. Even the people at the top don't know.
Every firm changes the definition a little bit and how people get there. Is it internal loan? Is it payout of profit share? Is it external loan? It's all over the place.
It's weird.
And for an industry that really has been, or a profession that has been around so long, it is fascinating to see, because there are some different state rules that can govern certain piece of it. There are communal norms based in perhaps region, state, or even locality, opposite what the practice area has to say about it, which has a massive impact on how cash flows into the practice. There's a lot of factors that go into it. When you think about, hey, there's a lot of factors, but we have to operate from some basic principles and solid defaults. What are some of the core principles and defaults that you fall back onto?
Okay, biggest one is ownership is one thing and employment is another. Okay, so you as the business owner, you have two roles. You're the business owner. You're also an employee of the business. Okay, so you need to be paid a certain, whether that's a W-2 or a combination of W-2 and draws. You're paid for your role in the business. Then you have a profit distribution based on your ownership, right? We need to delineate what those are and keep those buckets organized. And yes, I find that's often a misconception around paying myself as the owner. I'm not an employee. Well, yes, you are. You are an employee of the business.
If you decided to stop being an attorney in your practice or the CEO of your practice, you'd have to pay someone to do it.
And you could walk away. You could stop working. You could stay at home every day and not get that employment benefit, but still be owner and get the profit share, right? So we've got to keep those things delineated.
Yeah, I mean, that's why people buy 17 McDonald's franchises, because they want to own them, not be an employee in them.
Right.
Okay, what are some other principles and defaults that you fall back to?
Let's see. So we talked about the automation, separating the personal and business accounts and finances. That's really important. Paying yourself a regular wage, that's really important. Automating things is the next step. You're really making sure things are set up in a regular fashion. Creating regularity for yourself. Income volatility is a huge problem for many law firm owners. We can create regularity for you on the personal side, right? So that's a big concept. The other thing then I think is, making sure we are on track to that financial independence that we want, to have that pile of money, right? So that we can throw the keys on the desk and walk away if we want to. Okay.
Right.
Okay. You never want to retire. Great. I hear you. You're 30. Wait till you're 50. Right. I find that things change. You may not want to retire now, but you may be singing another tune 10, 20 years from now. Okay. So let's prepare you for that. So let's make sure you're taking absolute advantage of every tax advantaged vehicle that you can. Okay. Let's max out the 401k for you. I find the backdoor Roth IRA is often table stakes for clients. Usually law firm owners are making too much money to do the deductible IRA or to do a Roth IRA directly. And so we end up doing the backdoor Roth. It's a small amount. It's only $7,000 a year if you're under 50 or $8,000 if you're over 50 for an individual, but do that every year. And it will seriously add up. If you do that for 30 years, you'll have more than $1 million, right? That's how markets and compound growth works.
Yeah. Okay. So you're a compound growth guy. You're hey, let's have it just automatically take care of itself so you don't have to think about it. You don't want to have them making a lot of decisions month to month, quarter to quarter. It's just, here's the plan. It continues to go.
Absolutely. And that one of the beautiful things about automating savings is you end up in a place where you don't miss it, right? So, let's put you on payroll. Let's have a certain amount being deducted from your paycheck going into savings. It's not even hitting your personal bank accounts. You don't even know what's happening. So you're not missing it. If you, on the other hand, have to make the decision once a year to take money, find some money, scrape it together and throw it into an investment account, that becomes a lot more difficult. It's a bigger hurdle to get over. And what I find, there are a lot of very complex things that we can get into. But what I find, Charlie, is the basics. So often the basics are being missed and are just not being mastered. And if we can just do those, we can make so much great progress. And then we can add the icing on the cake with some of the more complex things.
Right. If you're starting a new firm, don't get into oil and gas leases on day one.
No, not
yet. Like there's when you have experimental money, you can go have fun with it. But getting all of that locked down for most firm owners. Oh, actually, I have a very specific question that I want to ask you because it is the time of year to ask this question, which is end of year, coming to the end of year. I have a bunch of money in the business. We got a bunch of settlements in the PI firm, or I've been sitting on this operations account all year in my family law firm, whatever it might be. Do I take that money out at the end of the year because, quote unquote, I don't want to pay taxes on it, which you'll still have to pay taxes on it when you take it out. I mean, taxes get paid either way. Or do I leave it in the business so I maintain my operations account going into next year?
Yes, I want to scream. So one of the biggest misconceptions that I find is law firm owners sometimes think that the money isn't taxed unless it goes from the business account to my personal account. If you're an LLC or sole proprietor, you're a flow through entity, you're going to get taxed on that money either way. Okay. So thank you for bringing up that question, because we could squash that one right away. So now you've got a bunch of money that came into the business, right? You had a big banner year. We've got to figure out how to get you some more deductions this year to get your taxable rate down, right? The biggest problem is that the tax code, like compounds itself. So as you get up into the higher brackets, you start to phase out of certain things. You phase out of QBI, you phase out of all these deductions that you could take. And so, it gets worse. You have net investment income tax, you have all kinds of things. So if you're scrambling at the end of the year, there's not a whole lot we can do necessarily, but there are a lot of things we can do. We can prepay stuff for next year. We can accelerate some expenses into the current year. Maybe you could prepay your rent. Maybe your marketing company that you're working for, you could prepay some of the work they're going to be doing next year. I'm sure they would love that.
Yeah.
And maybe you get a discount to do so. So you get a discount. You're going to lower your tax bill by getting some extra deductions. The other thing you can do, it's not as easy, is try to push out some income into next year. Maybe tell your client, hey, don't pay me until January 1. Not so easy to do. There's a lot of other things. You could bonus employees, get some money out of the firm. You could accelerate contributions into your 401k and tax deferred accounts. That's another way to do it. And one of our favorite things is to think about charity. It's the end of the year, right? Maybe there are some causes that you're really passionate about. You want to give some money to your local charity, your local foundation. One of the best ways to do that is through the business as like a sponsorship, because you don't have to worry about hitting certain thresholds on your personal income tax return. If you're going to do it personally, what we like to do is a donor advised fund. Right. So let's say you had a really great year. Okay. And you normally give $10,000 a year to a certain charity. Well, what we're going to do is we're going to put $50,000 in a donor advised fund. So you can get a $50,000 deduction this year. And then from your donor advised fund, you're going to dole out $10,000 a year to the charity.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah. So the donor advised fund is we do this almost with all of our clients. Really great way to control the timing of when you get the deduction separately from when you actually gift the money to the charities. And they're really easy to set up. Yeah.
That's awesome. Now, one of the things I think about, because I don't know all the complex machinations that you know about something like a donor advised fund. So for me, one of the things I think about from a simple psychology standpoint is, if you're a firm owner getting to the end of the year, and you're looking ahead into January and February, and you've got the decision, do I leave my operations account funded, or do I do what people have told me you're supposed to do as a law firm owner, and I pull the money out because it's my money, which it is your money. It's your money on either side of it. I look at it and go, okay, how are you going to feel emotionally when you know you're going to have to write the payroll check from your personal account, which will have been taxed? The business account, which may have been taxed, you're still going to have to pay taxes on. So love everything that you have said is extremely excellent. From the perspective of what I just shared, do you lean in hey, you need to keep your operations account there because it's emotionally good for you? Or is this just be smart about it ahead of time?
Yeah. In fact, I'm a big fan of the profit first system. And systems. Let's not pull money out of the firm willy-nilly because we have the money. It's there. I can take it. Treat the firm as its own entity. You're disrespecting the firm by you're stealing money from the firm, right? Pay yourself what you're supposed to pay yourself. Do your bonuses, but leave money there. You know how great you'll feel when, like you said, January, whatever, when you have to make payroll, you look in your firm and you're like, oh, there's 50 grand in my operating account. I'm in good shape, right? That will feel great, right? So don't take all the money out of the business.
I see it happen all the time. And it becomes really tough because then you have to deal with sometimes there becomes resentment towards your own business. I'm glad, Darren, that you framed it up as like treat the business as its own thing, right? Because and you can have that emotional relationship, even though you own the business, it does represent this externalized piece of you, like a child, essentially. And you can grow resentful of it when you go through January and you feel like, I can't believe I'm having to pay everyone out of my personal account. Well, no, you're paying yourself. You're paying them out of the money that perhaps you were supposed to have left in the business because you had a budget and you saw ahead. on all of this and you said, oh, I'm going to be responsible about all of this, I don't expect any of our major cases to hit, or January is often weak on signups for this particular practice area for us, or whatever it might be. People are slow to get their billables up. We have net 30 that we're waiting for, and we've closed down during the last 2 weeks of the year. And so we don't have cash flow coming in the last 2 weeks because we closed for the holidays. All those things have got to be considered.
Yes.
It's tough, man. The money thing, like all of these subjects, it is always much more deep than just money in, money out, even if that's the basic.
I find this is where having a system, having automations makes it so much more valuable, so much more helpful and easy. You don't have to wonder, do I take the money? Do I leave the money? Follow your system, follow your rules, and from my perspective, I would say, if you're not doing that, if you're pulling money out of the business and then having to push money back to the business for different purposes, you will never be able to grow real wealth for yourself with that kind of volatility. It's very difficult. Maybe I shouldn't say never, but it's going to be difficult.
Agreed. That perfect way to phrase it. So Darren, before I ask you the final little 3-part question, if people want to get to know you more, want to follow you, are considering, hey, I might need some help with this, what's the best place for them to go?
Yeah, just head over to lawyermillionaire.com. You'll find us there. You can grab some time with us, learn about everything that we do there.
Fantastic. All right, Darren, last little 3-part question for you, and you kind of already answered one of them, but what are you reading, watching, and listening to these days?
Ooh, reading, watching, and listening to. Okay, so I'm reading A Random Walk Down Wall Street by Burton Malkiel. It's an investment classic. It's accessible to all readers. So if you're not supposed to be an investment pro to read it, right? It's for novices. So
good.
Take a look. Go ahead and dive in. Watching, okay, let's see.
Just be honest. It's okay. Someone told us Love Island recently. Love is Blind. You could be real here.
I'm watching Nurse Jackie on Netflix.
Right on.
Was watching Grey's Anatomy. I know. I just finally got into it. I mean, I know they have like 20 some seasons. Just started watching it this year. And then Netflix recommended Nurse Jackie, so I started watching that one too.
There you go. So medical shows are the thing for you right now. Excellent. Yeah. And then what are you listening to?
Let's see. I like to listen. Well, I like to listen to books, so I do some audiobook listening, listening to a bit of A Random Walk. But then I also listen to podcasts. I do listen to a lot of law firm podcasts. So cool. Listen to a little bit of yours. I like Personal Injury Mastermind. I listen to that one a little bit. And then I listen to some advisor-specific ones.
Cool.
So I was listening to one recently about building a family office style wealth management business. And I was, I'm really kind of thinking about this. How can we build? Basically, we want to become a family office destination for law firm owners to help with your total financial picture. And so we already have a lot of the pieces in place, but stay tuned because we've got some big things coming.
That is really cool. I've heard the term home office, family office bandied about a little bit more recently in the legal profession. But there's not really a place to go outside of being one of the 9-figure firm owners who is getting the private version of it done.
Right. And so, we want to make it accessible because what we find is that even if you're a law firm owner, you have a lot of family office needs. You have a lot of wealth management needs, financial planning needs. You may not yet have, $10 million in an investment account, but you have a lot of the high net worth type of needs, like around tax planning and so forth. And so that's what we are building. We do a lot of that already, but we want to take it to the next level.
That's really cool. Well, Darren, thank you so much for your time, your answers, your insights, your energy today. I really appreciate it, man.
Thank you so much, Charlie. It's been great being here with you.
Absolutely. And we will see you all in the next episode of They Don't Teach This in Law School.